I am ready. Let's get this thing rolling. My voice sounds super weird in earbuds. Okay, we are starting with the minutes. Does anybody have any?
May I suggest first that Brad introduce himself?
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
Uh, Hello, I'm Brad Burkle. What else would you like to know? I guess is a good question. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't know much about you either. I know there's you're a city resident. I don't remember what neighborhood. Are you up in Middleton Hills?
I'm in Misty Valley.
Misty Valley. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I have a daughter in middle school, a daughter in high school. I'm an avid runner and cyclist.
cool. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Kirsten.
We're also joined by Alder Katie Nelson. And Middleton Review, Brad, just so you know, is a local e-newsletter that gets published a couple times a week on average. So that's in other words, we have media presence is what I'm saying. George sends.
Got it.
Hi guys, sorry I'm on my phone just listening in. Thanks a lot.
Okay. All right. You wanted to go to the minutes?
All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and review the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I tried to keep them shorter.
Yes, I noticed.
But I also I'm since I'm going shorter, I'm going to try for some things I'll list where they are in the recording. I just thought that's a service I can provide.
Yeah, that's a very helpful plan. Hearing no corrections, the meetings stand as the minutes stand as read. I'm sorry, guys. All right, so item 1, the active transportation plan community survey.
Yeah, so this is I did unfortunately our intern Nikki is not available for this meeting, but I've been working with her and we had a subcommittee meet. I guess it was last week, and that led to some changes. And hopefully, Tad and Kirsten, you were both attending that meeting, and Steve, you were there as well. Lisa Hanairo, who's not able to be here tonight, by the way. So we thought it would be good to bring this back to you now to see if how it's looking to you. We'd like to obviously finalize this and get it ready for distribution. I did get a comment from Alder Hanairo, which indicates she had been in correspondence with a colleague of hers, a counterpart, I should say, in Fitchburg, and he was suggesting framing, think of this approach specifically framed to work around the whole. We're thinking of building a bridge over the river. How often do you currently swim from one side to the other? Problem. I include. Let's see, I just got this afternoon. I hadn't looked at it yet. Anyway, well, maybe that's not something to get into right now. Okay, go ahead.
Just one little thing on questions 4 and 7. I think the response items are just seem like they're incorrect. One of them's off on, I think it's both 5. Did I get it? No, maybe they're corrected on that version. Very important, not important. Maybe I was looking at a version. I thought it had the same response. And what about 7? What does 7 look like on yours?
It's 7.
1 and 5 are the same.
Oh, it
Yeah.
should be safe.
On 7 and 8.
Good
7
eye.
and 8. 1 and
Good eye.
5 are both, I guess it should say very safe.
Yep, no, good eye. It also doesn't wrap now. That's good.
Kirsten.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention the same, but I really like the changes that were made. And I timed myself when I took this, and it was far under 10 minutes, and that was the biggie. I feel like it's been streamlined and will be a lot easier for people to take. And I think more people will be taking it now in this form.
Mark, do you know what well, you probably do know, what's the program that it's going to be put in? I assume it's an online, is this going to be online?
Yeah, I was originally I was hoping our intern would help with that, but unfortunately her last day is tomorrow, so I'll work with my colleague Daphne. But yes, the idea was to have it be online, but I also want to make sure we have it in paper form so that we can, for people who wish to not, who wish to fill it out in a more traditional way. It's accessible to them that way as well.
Yeah, but it's a lot shorter than it was when we started last meeting, so I like that too. It seems like it can be done pretty quickly. And I like those questions that were added regarding, future directions, things that, actions that might be taken.
Right. Good. Well, happy to hear it.
Mark, can we have this go out in a Polko?
I'm not sure we have a Polko subscription anymore. I will inquire about that.
Okay.
Okay, so basically with the correction of a couple typos, you feel like we're on track and we can proceed.
That's what it
Yeah,
sounds
I
like
just
to me.
Okay.
Yep, I just want to reiterate what everybody else said. There were a lot of comments and suggestions, and I think this version incorporated all of them. So I think looks good.
Thanks, Todd. Okay.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? This survey is for public consumption?
Yeah, so the purpose for the survey is we are developing a successor to our bicycle and pedestrian plan, what we're calling an active transportation plan. It's becoming a pretty common term, the planning process that many communities in the state are engaged in. So we just felt this was an important way to connect with the public to determine what their priorities are for improving pedestrian, bicycle, and transit mobility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, that's enough feedback for me. I don't know that we need anything more formal than your feedback here. So,
Right, sounds good.
okay, thank you.
Moving on to item 2, Park Elmwood intersection, the initial alternatives.
Yeah, and I presume Alder Nelson, this is something of interest to you. So back in December of 2022, and I'm sorry I didn't include that in the meeting packet, we had, we start with that. We had discussion by this committee in the context of the Elmwood Avenue project about things that could be done to improve the crossing at the Elmwood Park intersection. And this is an excerpt from that meeting. Ignore the, well, here, we'll do it this way. There you go. So I'll make this a little larger. So essentially, the concern was, or the interest from the committee was, are there ways we can enhance pedestrian bicycle mobility and safety, recognizing that there's limitations with the driveway that serves Parkwood Plaza. What are some options that should be considered? So the city budgeted for that as part of this year's budget. And that led to, well, and there was a motion here to suggest pedestrian islands and a traffic circle at Park and Elmwood. So that was the committee's guidance a year and a half ago. So that led to a study by traffic consultant or working with our city engineer, and they've come up with some options, if you will. This is opinion of probable construction cost for various options. This was the neighborhood traffic circle option, alternative 1. It's in your packet. A raised crosswalk, alternative 2, and alternative 3 is the entire intersection being raised, like a speed table, if you will. And then here are the drawings that go with each option. Traffic circle There's actually two variants to that, depending on how the gutters are handled along the corners. Here's the raised crosswalks on north and south sides of Park Street of Elmwood. And then here's the raised intersection idea. So this is just preliminary. This is an opportunity to provide initial feedback. And we wanted to then go back to the committee, to the consultant to prepare a report. Turning it over to you.
Dale.
Yeah, I liked alternate two. It does slow down the traffic on Park Street. That's proceeding through in the other direction. There's already a stop sign. So that would be my vote, would be alternate.
I'm
This
I'm
way.
honestly not so hot on two. The specific implementation of raised crosswalks is to give cycle and pedestrian traffic along the main thoroughfare, which in this case I believe is Park, the right of way over Side Street, which is Elmwood. It is a little tricky because Elmwood is the extension of US Bike Route 30, so there is something there. In that case, I would lean towards just spending the extra money on the full raised intersection. I don't want to be too much of a stickler on this kind of thing, but I do want to try and, as much as possible, I want to try and stick to the kind of the developing standards that cities and countries that are doing this more often than we are developing, so that we don't do something too off base that people then have to be specifically used to that crazy thing we did in Middleton. I appreciate your perspective, Dale. It is the issue that people want to cross Park itself, especially getting off the bus. But I feel like that would be a great example where if we had the continuous crosswalks paralleling Park and crossing Elmwood, and then we did the splitter islands, I feel like that would be a better implementation of that concept. Anybody else? Kirsten.
Yeah, as a cyclist that takes this routinely and a pedestrian that takes this routinely, despite Middleton's choice to make Hubbard Avenue the bike route, most people are still going to continue to go Elmwood to Old Middleton because that is the fastest and most direct route. And for most people who bike commute into Madison, they take Elmwood to Old Middleton, and this is a really dangerous crossing. So I would also vote for either a complete raised area or one of the traffic circles versus just for the pedestrians, because that is such a high use cyclist route for people commuting to work.
Katie has her hand up, Ted.
She does.
Hi, Tad.
Hey,
Hey,
Katie.
it's good to see you. I missed this committee. I want to just ask you about the entire raised intersection. Does that just signal to automobiles to just slow down through there. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to help cyclists and pedestrians. If it's just, it doesn't, I guess as you know from the old notes, my initial thought was more of the circle. And I've never seen a raised intersection, maybe, I don't think. Can you help me understand?
Yeah, well, and so the other side of, I would love to follow the emerging standards. However, the fact that the emerging standards are often quite new, especially out here, can be an issue. Yes, the idea is partly it slows vehicles down because it's a raised deflection. More, it makes pedestrian cyclists much more visible by elevating them. And
That
then
makes sense.
the last thing, for pedestrians, it provides a continuous level surface, so that this is in a lot of ways more about that aspect is more about accessibility. It allows wheelchair users to not only be more visible, but to not have to like brake hard as they're going down a sudden short ramp into the street. They can have a controlled roll out into the
I really
intersection.
love that. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And so
yeah, cool.
So the other, I hope I'm explaining this part right. The other specific implementation detail of that over raised crosswalks in this constraint would be that Park has a low enough overall traffic volume that it leans, and Elmwood has a very low traffic volume, that it leans more into the raised intersection than, again, the raised crosswalks, which are to provide the higher volume pedestrian and bike flows along the dominant street priority over. Oh, hey, Tom. Over, sorry, I'll get to you in a sec. Over the very low volume side.
So am I hearing you correctly that this really helps more people than just a circle or a raised crosswalk?
Yes and no. It's kind of about the context. I believe this is an appropriate context for a raised intersection. And it starts moving us into the direction, the traffic circle could be fine. The raised intersection is finer.
Yeah. I'm seeing it now. I like it.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm going to mute so I can drive to my next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Katie. Tom. You're muted, Tom.
Everything you're saying makes sense to me. I didn't really haven't thought this out much and didn't come with an opinion, but what you and Kristen has been saying, I think I would agree with. Well, how does this affect blind people?
Under the circumstances, it would probably be in some way similar to what's there now.
Okay.
But I mean,
my guess is they would be required to have that ramp. The ramp would still be, what are those called? The
tactile paving.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
We still would require those before an intersection, I would think.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Right. So the tactile paving's still there. In terms of the traffic control, there's not necessarily a whole lot of change. It's still very dependent on their ability to hear vehicles around them.
guess I support what you're, recommending. I think you guys have studied this more than I have.
All right, Steve?
So that's all with my questions.
Yeah, this is all new to me, so I really just have a question.
Mhm.
Is there signage that goes along with this? Does it require people to reduce speeds as different options? I'm just trying to get a sense of, people leading into the intersection. Did the different options, like I said, require different changes in speed and different signage, or is that not the case? What goes along with the different options?
So I'm putting up some examples here of,
Okay.
Mark, can we get the traffic circle example? Is it on the one that runs off of Park just south of there, that goes towards the ponds? Or goes to the park? Which
what,
is it? Sedge Meadow, or is it the one prior?
you're talking about a different part of the city up by Orchid Heights, you mean? Or North Lake?
No. It's right off of Park. So heading south on Park Street, if you take a right, just past the nitty gritty, is it Sedge Meadow or is it
Long Meadow.
Long Meadow? There's a traffic circle right by the park at Long Meadow, and it shows the signage as well.
I'm not familiar with where that circle is.
Here, I'm looking. Yeah, keep going. I'll find it here.
Is it? Oh,
It's
I know what you mean.
It's either
It's not-
Sawmill or Long Meadow. I don't know which one.
Oh, it's Sawmill. I know what you're talking
Okay.
about.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because that's a really good example of it.
okay, yeah,
And it
I know what you mean.
shows that the buses can turn a left, but cyclists and buses can omit the circle and take a left. But yeah, it's just a nice, that one. Yep, there you go.
So yeah, I was looking for a raised intersection example first, but yeah, this one's in Madison, this circle. Madison has done quite a few of these. There's some over in the Edgewood College neighborhood. Can't remember the streets there, but definitely there's no, I don't recall there being a sign.
But that certainly slows people down and going around a circle.
Yeah.
There's a sign right, normally there's a sign right there on one of as you're entering it on Sawmill.
On some.
Yeah. Sawmill heading west. There's a sign right on the circle.
Hmm.
Yeah, and all the circles that you're talking about
Oh, here
are
we
on Edgewood, right by Trader Joe's. Yeah.
So there's the, yeah. It says except buses. So I guess what that means is buses can take a shortcut and turn left ahead of the circle. I think that's what that means. That's how I would read that anyway. Is that how you read that? Yeah.
Yeah, and in most cities, they actually allow cyclists to also take a left versus going around it. Most cities I've been in, Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, they all let both buses and cyclists take a left versus going around the whole thing. But we don't, yeah, I think that would confuse folks.
So that's not what I wanted. So the ones in Madison are, oops, which ways? That's south.
They're on Edgewood, right near
I just was on the wrong side. They're over here. Here we go.
Yeah.
So this is a much smaller, or quite a bit smaller circle with just simple yellow reflectors or whatever they are. So yeah, so this in Edgewood is a street that has carries less traffic than Park Street, but I don't know by how much less. But it's not quite as much as Park Street. I'm sure of that, but much smaller as opposed to the one at Sawmill, which is quite nice. What I would like to find is an example of a raised intersection, and Is there one in the Madison area that we can point to? Or another city that you can think of, any of you? I know there's the one down by Martin Luther King in front of the, in front of the city county building. That's been there for a long time, but it's not really an intersection, but it's a big area that's raised. It's kind of hard to see. Actually, maybe that's, yeah, it is raised. So it's level to the left and right here. But it's not at an intersection per se. It's an intersection with pedestrians, but not. So it's basically a very wide crosswalk. There are examples though around. I just right now can't think of one. But I did have other images that we let's see, raised intersection. This is New York City. I never know how to raise these. Let's see here. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to take us too far afield here. So back to your conversation.
Yeah, in general, I think you could see this in those pictures Mark was finding. The raised intersections have the same kind of raising markings that you'll see at a continuous crosswalk or a speed hump or a speed table telling you that there's going to be some vertical deflection.
Right. Okay. So what is the group's consensus then, or I mean, I'm getting reactions from most of you. It sounds like the raised crosswalks by themselves is not as desirable. I would note that we're putting them in at Bellefontaine. We put a couple in. But those are
Those. Oh, sorry, I thought I froze.
No.
Yeah, those are generally aligned properly. Todd.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in this, but it seems like it sounds like the raised crosswalks are relatively newer than the traffic circles, but I guess it would just seem to me, you know, my just by looking at it, it would seem to me that the traffic circles would slow down traffic more than the raised crosswalks. I mean, is that generally the case or not? Because I'm just thinking from some of the pictures that we saw that, you know, if there's a big circle in the middle of the intersection, you know, people are going to slow down because they have to turn right versus just go straight. A change in elevation, you know, I've heard conversation that, you know, sometimes speed bump works, sometimes they don't. But is that generally the case that, you know, traffic circles are more efficient at slowing traffic than these raised intersections, or not? Just a question, I guess. Maybe nobody knows the answer.
Yeah, I don't know how much data we actually have on that. Kirsten, did you have? Or Brad?
I was this intersection. If there were a circle there, what happens when it backs up? Because I've seen it back up past Elmwood in the past, and does that make it more dangerous with cars kind of hanging in the intersection there?
if I may answer that, Todd,
Yeah.
I would say that Park Street would still have the right of way. It's not a circle in terms of a roundabout. What I'm seeing here on Sawmill at Westfield is that there still is a stop sign on Westfield, but Sawmill is the through street. I think that's how that works. Yeah, there's no stop sign here. So this street going east to west. Oops, sorry. I meant to zoom out actually. I think I went to a completely, yeah, I went somewhere else. Where are we here? Here we go. All right, so let's go north. All right, there we go. So this street is Sawmill is the through street. So the stop signs are in effect for Westfield. So imagine Sawmills being Park Street and Westfield being Elmwood. Sawmill traffic would always have the right of way. That's how I interpret that.
Right, but when the light is red on University, and so all of that Park Street traffic is stopped, are we gonna have cars around the circle preventing through traffic? Because
Yeah,
that's what happens now at Elmwood,
Oh,
where
I
it
see
gets
what
totally
you're saying.
blocked.
yeah.
Yeah,
Brad, you're talking about northbound on Park, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A huge point. That's true.
That's a very good point.
Mark, I just emailed you a really good picture, an image of a raised intersection too.
Okay. Yeah, and I also came across have one here. Oh, thank you. That's a good one. Although that's a three-way intersection. Okay. But this is a good image because it shows you this is a common symbol used to indicate to drivers that that the pavement's going up. Crosswalk obviously is a continuous crosswalk. The color of the intersection shows that it's raised. So yeah, that's a good drawing. Oops. There's also the Monroe Street. Where was this now? Monroe Glenway intersection is you can see here this is a raised intersection in Madison. It's not as easily visible from the side, but you can sort of see that something different is happening here. It's a fairly gentle, I mean, it's not that pronounced, but it does you know, it does tell you that the intersection is meant to be traveled through more cautiously.
With Brad's input, this is Kirsten. I actually do now like the raised intersection better because of that pinch point idea. Because if cyclists were trying to get through there and cars were stopping on around the circle, there would be no way for a cyclist to get through. Hopefully drivers wouldn't stop and just stall on the crosswalk for pedestrians, but also cyclists, because that would be a pinch point, could not get around them in the bike lane.
Yeah. So cars would basically be stopping. You know, you can't see the intersection of the University to the north, but cars would back up. It's hard to tell where I'm drawing, but cars would back up around this roundabout. Would be more apt to back up around the roundabout, I should say. Not roundabout, the circle, excuse me. Whereas here it might be more intuitive for them to leave an opening. It's good input. Kirsten, your camera's off, by the way. I don't know what happened to it. There you go. Thank you.
Do we have any? Sorry, Mark.
No, that's fine.
Do we have any other feedback at this time? So Mark, are we looking for a motion for our initial recommendation?
Well, I don't even know if you need a motion so much. If you'd like, you can do a motion, but I think this feedback has been really helpful.
Okay.
If you know, I mean, I can just reflect the consensus of the committee. Well, it depends. If there's anybody who has a contrary view, I guess you should express it. But if you favor the raised intersection for the reasons stated earlier, you know, that's kind of what I hear is the consensus. But if somebody has a different opinion, I guess that would be good to know.
Okay.
This isn't going to result in the city deciding to do this. There's still
Right.
additional study, and so I don't think it's a motion's as important. But if you'd like to make one, there's no harm in it.
Okay. I'm honestly fine if we don't.
Okay. Anybody object to that? Being the consensus of having that you're most interested in the raised intersection idea to avoid pinch points, and I mean that's what I can reflect in the minutes.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. I mean, it seems like the traffic circles would definitely, I mean, what I'm assuming is the traffic circles would slow traffic more than the raised intersection. And so it seems like the raised intersection is more of a compromise to um, not negatively influence the positive flow of traffic too much, but also to create a more safe crossing. So it seems like more of a balance, I guess, between the flow of traffic and safe passage by pedestrians and bicyclists.
All right.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item number 3, Century Avenue, Allen Boulevard intersection improvements.
Yeah, and actually, I suppose it would be good to get a quick image of that.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to learn that, and I must have missed watching a council meeting. I was on vacation when it happened, but a couple months ago, the council approved gave the go-ahead to Strand to study this intersection for the purpose of enhancing traffic signals in particular. So when I found out about that, I thought, well, this isn't just about traffic signals. This is about having on the ground as much safer design to make it a safer pedestrian bicycle crossing, because today it's not. So I met with with Abby Attoon, my boss, and we met with our engineering staff to discuss our concerns. And so I am told that they are now incorporating our feedback, and we're already planning to study this to look into having a crossing on the east side, making some adjustments to accommodate a future path on the east side of Allen Boulevard. It's also possible that we would instead have the path on the west side of Allen, which at first I was averse to that idea, but then I started thinking about this more and realized that the path that we have down here that essentially ends at Midtown Pub, this path that comes up from Madison along Allen Boulevard. We could have the crossing at the Maywood intersection, and we have more right-of-way on the west to bring the path up to this intersection. If the east side is shown not to be feasible, we have more of a constraints with right-of-way here along the Harbor Athletic Club office building and property. So I just wanted to, there's no action item here, but if you have any specific concerns that you want to make sure are studied, I've also advocated that they put in a bike symbol at the cross, one of those, a bicycle traffic signal for the crossings. So they're looking into all these things.
Kirsten.
You knew I'd have something to say about this one.
That's why I have it on the agenda.
Yeah. Crossing over Allen once again is, I don't know, already the northeast side is so cut off, and that is causing anybody traveling by bike to do an extra crossing. And it's also very confusing. I mean, that's the area where the bike path ends, right by Midtown Pub, that I see everybody stopping and just standing there and looking around of where do I go when they want to do a lake loop. I think it would be really confusing to have them cross Allen just across Century, and then to have them cross Allen Court once again. If that's the only option, if Harbor Athletic Club refuses to give right away, I understand, but that is not intuitive and not a normal flow whatsoever in my mind. The only safe thing is that it would it would cut off that one slipstream, but you have a slipstream on Century heading south as well onto Allen. So, I mean, that,
You're talking about this.
yeah,
Yeah, and I asked about getting rid of that slip ramp, I think they call it, and just having a standard right turn. I don't know whether that specifically will be studied or not. I think because of all the traffic and needing to have 2 lanes to make this turn, just like there's 2 lanes making the turn in the other direction. You know, this is a double left turn here because of traffic volumes. I think they're not wanting to do that. What I saw it as a possible, what I wondered whether it's possible to have this be a bigger refuge area in the middle, and certainly having refuge areas elsewhere. We don't want to have 3 or 4 stage crossings. That's not preferable, obviously. But safety is a key concern. So they have a lot to consider here, and the budget for this was only, I think, $135,000, which didn't seem like that much to me, but especially since this is combined with 2 other intersections. There's on the northeast side, Q and Century, and then also Allen and Lake was also part of this. It's a traffic signal study. So,
I mean, I think this intersection and the one on Allen and University are probably the 2 most dangerous intersections in all of Middleton, and the 2 that take the longest to cross. The multi-segment crossings, I've told you that it's taken up to 8 minutes for me to cross if I'm actually crossing with the lights. We have to figure out a way to cut that down, because nobody who's bike commuting or walking is going to want to take 8 minutes to cross one road.
Tom. You're muted. Tom, you're muted.
Now I'm unmuted.
Now you're
Yeah,
unmuted.
I used that a lot too, going from the condo to CVS. Used to be I would go to the bank too. And I didn't ever, do a study, but it seemed like it took forever to do the Allen and then crossing on the west side of Century. The other thing I think I pointed out earlier is the people coming out of CVS making a left turn. I think the lighting there, I mean, I'm like invisible, and people have almost hit me as a pedestrian when I'm crossing with the light at that intersection. And then the third thing is if you had pedestrian crossings on both sides, like you were saying about it, it would make the bike path look more continuous. But it would also help the traffic with the right turns during rush hour. The traffic is continuous, so that it's really hard to get out way down the next block. And if there was, a no right turn while pedestrians cross, that would also provide openings for the people trying to get out onto Century from down on Dewey Court and Marina. Those are my thoughts.
And that no right turn is used on University, is it by Spring Harbor?
yeah. And I brought that up during my meeting with the engineering staff, that I used that example too, and we talked about how that's important for promoting safety.
Todd.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, this was in District 4, and I haven't been in Alder for very long, but I've received a lot of concerns from from District 4 residents about this area. They're very concerned about the safety for pedestrian crossings at Allen and Century, and bicycle crossings, and just reaffirming everything that's already been said. A lot of questions about the dead end for the trail at Midtown Pub. So greatly support, and thanks for bringing this up, Mark. Greatly support efforts to look at options while this initiative is occurring. And we definitely need to include pedestrian and bicycle safety in this initiative. So thanks for bringing this up.
Okay, so
Tom, are you,
there's no action item. It's just, I wanted you to be aware of the study and let you know that I'm gonna try and do everything I can to make sure that peds and pedestrians and bicyclists are a focus, the focus for enhancing the intersection.
all right.
Um,
Tom, did you have one more thing to say? You're muted again.
No, that's all. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Sounds
okay.
good.
Item number 4, development of the Complete Streets Guide. My part of that is July got away from me. Everything happened.
it's
So
okay.
I have
It's
done,
possible.
I have done nothing. We can discuss, but we can also postpone again if nobody else has anything tonight.
Why don't we postpone it then? I haven't worked on anything with it either. I was kind of waiting to see what you were gonna do, so.
Yeah, yeah, no, I chose to stick to my principles and move on foot, and that took a solid 2 weeks, and then I got caught in CrowdStrike, so the rest of July vanished.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Budget recommendations.
So, we have let's see, what did I put in the packet? I put, let's start with last year's discussion. Leading pedestrian intervals, and that's a study that is underway, I believe. Or did we, yeah, that's being done this year. Elm Boulevard Bike Path, that is a project that's not being done this year, but it's still something we're planning to budget for next year, and that's that segment from Midtown that I just talked about, extending that to the north. Updating the bicycle plan, it's being called the Active Transportation Plan. That's something we are working on in-house, as you're aware. Exploring the feasibility of B-cycle, that is something that has been, for lack of a better word, festering for probably 10 years as an idea. We have no direction at the staff level to pursue that, so we have not taken any steps to pursue that, other than the initial steps we took over the several years ago. Council has not decided to fund that initiative with tourism. The Cayuga Connector is something that I do want to focus on with you tonight. And what are the other ones here? The Allen Century intersection, we talked about that. A crosswalk RFB, that's something that that is going in at Pheasant Branch Road and Gaylord Nelson, as Alder Janeiro has advocated. Yeah, and then Clark and Lee Street, that has been determined, Public Works decided that not to proceed. We've got some other things happening with that intersection where Lee Street's no longer going through. So there's no initiative there, to my knowledge, to make any enhancements along Lee Street. So those were the projects discussed last year. I do want to turn to Cayuga, the Cayuga Connector. And Brad, I'm sorry for not giving you background on this earlier. What this is a bike path that is, I think where I have something readily at my fingertips. But basically what it is the concept of having a path going from the fire station, next to the fire station, downtown Middleton at Cayuga Street and the ramps, and have the path run along here, up to following the right of way, the highway on ramp and then the off ramp, and coming out here at the Parmenter roundabout. So the idea is to connect downtown with our east-west trail system. So you come up from the trail system and then you could take this all the way downtown without crossing another street. The only street you'd cross is Parmenter, the Parmenter roundabout here. And then you could come out at this intersection and essentially be downtown. So that we have, yeah, I don't know who said cool, but someone said that. So yeah, that is something that's been in our bicycle plan for 15 years. And we have a cost estimate of $376,000, which is a bit lower than I'm glad it wasn't more. I'm surprised it wasn't more. But it's actually close to the original placeholder estimate we had, which was 375,000. And this includes contingencies and also construction engineering. I think the reason why it's able to be the number that it is because it's grass. Most of it's, there's not all these driveways and utilities that need to be crossed. The main difficulty with the project, or the main challenge, is this intersection. This is where there's significant go a little further here. There's a utility box here, and where the path runs here this is the biggest hurdle, if you will. But everything else is it follows largely flat land, and there'll be some drainage issues here and there. But anyway, so that's construction engineering is well underway. We just got this estimate this week. The idea was to have the estimate in time for budget deliberations. So that's what I have for and then there's one more thing I wanted to mention, and that is that our city budget is the planning department budget. It's very preliminary here. Has these initiatives in it. So we have the Cayuga connector, and I was anticipating this committee would give a favorable recommendation if you wish to do that. The multi-use path on the east side of Allen. Century Avenue Road Diet is something else we should discuss. That's something we'd like to proceed with. We recommend that be initiated. Still some additional funds for bus stop improvements. There's still some odds and ends that we feel could be done. The Allen Boulevard Century Avenue corridor plan, that is I'm drawing a blank right now as to what that is. Oh, I think that's the study to see that we can have safer crossings. I'm sorry, I don't remember right now what that is. Century Avenue Trailhead as well. So, it's a corridor plan. So it's a more general corridor plan to identify needs along the corridor and I would say pedestrian and bicycle safety is a key part of that. So Century Avenue Trailhead, that is the area next to Branch Street. Here we are, where the city owns this property at the intersection of Branch and Century, where the paths come out, and eventually we are still anticipating that the new bridge that's under design right now will have a path running under it. That's part of the design. And so what sort of development we have for a trailhead in this area, that's what that line item is for. So that's the background I have. I heard someone's hand up. All right.
Brad.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I was just stepping back to the Cayuga Corridor Trail. Would that be replacing riding Parmenter right now?
No.
Was that the thought?
You're talking about the Cayuga connector?
Yes, so getting from Parmenter downtown, because there's bike lanes on Parmenter, so
Right.
this
is just supplementing it.
Supplementing it. Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like a great idea, but is Parmenter found to be more dangerous than other areas?
No, I would say that what we are finding in not just Middleton, but other communities, and Kirsten and Ted and others can speak to this as well. There is a strong desire by a number of bicyclists that they prefer a path over riding in traffic, especially since there aren't protected bike lanes. They are just on street. They're sharing the street with motorists. I have no problem with, and a lot of people I know have no problem with riding on a street. Having a bike lane gives you your own area of the street. But there are, we do have a network of bike paths in the city that we are very fortunate to have. The spine of the city's trail system runs through, east to west, as you know, and out. There's a north option to the Firefighters Park and a southwest option up to the golf course now. And so this is just another connection to that path from downtown. kind of like these
Okay,
little
no, that
islands up here. Yeah.
no, that makes sense. It's expensive, but I see the need and use. So I was just curious what it was replacing, but that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not replacing anything. It's just, yeah. Good question.
Just supplementing. Okay, thank
And
you.
as a lazy utility cyclist, I also like coming out closer to my destination wherever possible. So densifying the network is always good in my book. Kirsten.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the only thing that I would want to add to this, and I know I sound like a broken record, but resurfacing the paths that go by Parisi Park, which is a huge connector for both the high school and the middle school. And they have been in horrible shape for a long time, and they really need to be resurfaced.
I'm really glad you said that. Path maintenance and developing a capital improvement plan for path maintenance is something that Kylie Scher, our Parks and Rec director, that's very high on her list. I will be happy to pass that along as committee feedback, because I know that we've put in a lot of paths, and there's concern that if we keep putting in infrastructure but don't also budget for maintenance, that's a big problem. So just like we don't want to see roads go downhill, we can't let our paths go downhill. And we have not just Precy Park, but I would say the path by Costco is especially bad. We've got a couple, and North Fork Trail has got some bad areas. So I will pass that along as a priority as well. And then the road diet, what that is, Brad and others or Stephen, you may not know this either, but that idea is to, along Century Avenue, do what we did along Gammon Road about 10 years ago now, which is study the feasibility of having, taking the 4 lanes that are here now, especially back here. So having these 4 lanes be 1 lane in each direction with a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. So if you imagine this you see the 4 lanes here now, and then think of that as what we have on Gammon Road, where we have it's comparable in width. 4 lanes of traffic is what it used to be, and 1 lane in each direction. Obviously, the traffic volumes are higher on Century Avenue by quite a bit, but they are still within the range of what federal studies and state studies indicate can accommodate a road diet. But we want to make sure, and that's why why engineers would like to do a study to see what the impacts of that are.
Would that road diet run all the way to Parmenter?
Yes. So the idea is that it would run from, ideally it would run from Branch Street all the way up to Parmenter here. It might be hard to get it down to Branch Street, but it would be nice, just because we have a pinch point with bicycle connections here to Old Creek Road and up to Donna Drive, Frank Lloyd Wright. The traffic volumes here are heavier than they are west of Donna Drive. From Donna Drive to Parmenter, they're not as heavy because a lot of people come east on Donna, when they come off the Beltline or from the school, and then they turn right on Century. So their traffic volumes to the west of Middleton Hills are a bit lower. And then, of course, east of Branch Street, and especially east of Allen, they're heavier. So that's why no one's proposing not having 4 lanes east of Branch Street, but at Branch Street, a lot of people turn left. So we feel there's a potential, certainly from Downer Drive West, but maybe even from Branch Street West, to reduce the travel lanes so that we can enhance pedestrian and bicycle accommodations.
Yeah, that'd be great. That section there, it's near my neighborhood. It's impossible for a bicycle. You always have to find an alternative route. So
what neighborhood are you in, Steve?
I'm in Middleton Hills.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. So those are the projects that we are proposing. I'll add to this path resurfacing. Any other feedback that anybody has that you'd like us to? We don't have our own budget, we can just advise other departments, Parks and Rec specifically for PAS, and Public Works and planning for on-street facilities. That's why you don't see a budget document per se for this committee.
Can you pull up that list again, Mark?
Sure, this one. Sorry,
Yes.
this is internal notes that I shouldn't have had on here.
Yeah.
In fact, this is from a few days ago, and I was hoping to have it, that it would be finalized. It's going in the Plan Commission packet, which isn't published yet, so this is an early list for you.
Okay. So this feels like a motion.
Yeah, if you'd like to make a motion to, and you know, things that you are endorsing in terms of priorities, feel free. I'll take the ones, you know, things that are not as relevant to your, you know, purview. I guess we can take those out.
Okay.
And I would say the quarter plan, and that's more general, but whatever, you can. Yeah, I'm actually happy to see that so much of our Plan Commission capital budget recommendation is focused on the work of this committee. So it's more than just what we used to do. So, and then path resurfacing is in this list too, which is an operating, well, it's an ongoing operational issue, but it's capital because of the scope and longevity of the surface. It's going to be a capital budget item.
All right, I said it was a motion, but you might have to help me walk through the structure of the motion, because we're recommending to other committees, other city departments.
Yeah, I mean, what are your priorities? What does the committee feel is should be prioritized for the 2025 budget? That's really the open-ended question. And we're not, you know, not all these things will get funded. I mean, that's just the reality of what happens with our budgets. So what do you want to see as the highest priority? You know, is there a certain preference you have of what that? I will say that the Cayuga connector, we have 1 year left where we can use TIF, tax increment financing. And after this next year, we can't do any more spending in that district. So if we are to develop it and we want to use TIF to do it, this next year is the year to do it. Otherwise, we'd have to find another funding source, whether it's a grant or just borrowing with capital funds. So that's a consideration. The other TIF 5 has a longer lifespan, so that's not as urgent. But obviously, as Kirsten and others have noted, you know, we've got a safety issue. I do think that what happens with the Century and Allen intersection, that's when we want everything to be buttoned up. So, you know, investing in a path on the east side, if we don't know where the path connection is going to be at Allen Century, we have this as a placeholder here. We know it's important. It has to be done, whether it's done next year or the following year, you know, that's to be determined.
Could we split out the planning from the actual implementation so that we could have, say, 2 alternatives ready to go, depending on what happens with the intersection?
When you say planning from the implementation, right now the intersection itself is being, you know, they're designing options for that. Is that what you meant by plan?
No. Well, okay. So with the Cayuga connector, we had an idea. You had an idea, and then we hired Strand to do the actual design work.
Right. And
they came up with a budget. What I'm suggesting is having so we have the 3 phases. We have the idea, we have the design, we have the actual implementation. What I'm talking about is, at the moment, it sounds like we have no actual design for the Allen Boulevard path.
Well, that's correct. We don't currently have a design.
All right. So I guess what I'm asking, what I'm asking about is kind of the difficulty of splitting the design part out and prioritizing that rather than the total of the project viewed as one thing, so that we had two alternatives ready to go by the time the design on the intersection was finished. Although from the intersection talk, that sounds like it might be less pressing.
Well, I'm on the same page as Kirsten, and I think you and many of us are, is that we want that path along the east side if we can get it. It just requires cooperation from the adjoining property owner.
Right.
So that is clear and away the first choice. But there's a variable, as I understand it, with what the engineers feel. There's a reason why there's no crosswalk on the east side of that intersection of Allen and Century. And I don't see why we can't say there will be a crosswalk from now on, going forward. It has implications though for the turning movements, which are significant, Allen to Century. So it's a choice, a policy choice that the city will have to make, working with Dane County, because those are county roads. So it's just unknown right now. We need to have more information to know what is physically feasible and practically feasible, and what the implications are if we were to introduce a crosswalk there. I even suggested, what if we had a phase where, it's just one stage crossing, what's the implications of that? We know that,
sorry. So I guess to wind back, I may have gotten too into the weeds. Let me ask a question, a clarifying question for myself. Is that $350K for the design stage or for everything?
Oh, that would be a construction. That would be everything.
Okay. Then my confusingly worded question still stands. Could we budget for the smaller amount of the design first and leave the
and you know what? Maybe there is well, I don't think we have a design. I'm sorry, I don't remember if we have a design or not.
Okay.
I just have not been working on that this year, so I don't know where that stands. I just was grabbing the list that Abby's been working on, so I don't recall, so I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to parse out design from construction.
That's okay. Tom.
Yeah, so I'm kind of have bits and pieces over the years, but when we put the bike path on the north side of Century Avenue, we were also, I think, considering as an alternative putting it on the I should, rather than north and south, maybe I should be saying, well, the south side of Century. If we're talking about trying to make, connect the path and make it continuous, would it make sense to have it on both sides for one block and then cross at the bridge? Maybe I'm thinking too far outside of but we're talking about connecting it.
We did have a committee member once who, rightfully so, was concerned about the Marina and Dewey Court crosswalk or crossing where there is no crosswalk because these medians are too narrow to safely hold a pedestrian, much less a bicyclist. So, we
and there was also,
go ahead.
Wasn't there talk about going under the bridge?
Well, that was a radical idea that I suggested once. We're not anywhere near that type of discussion right now. It sure would be nice to be able to do that, but this bridge would have to be rebuilt and there's a lot of constraints, and I at this point don't think that that's a feasible option. And not to mention, you really should have complete streets and be able to cross at grade. But
so the idea of having a parallel bike path on both sides of the road, or is there any, how, is there a possibility of having a crossing at the bridge? That's a long distance from
Yeah,
the,
and that's what I think that corridor study is supposed to help address that question.
okay,
Yeah, that brought up the RRFB there.
Yeah. Oh, this is, our comprehensive plan identifies the area as, you know, from Branch Street to Allen, but especially Allen up to Highland. This is a long barrier, a long stretch without a crosswalk. There are no crosswalks at any of these locations. So we're
Yeah.
well aware that that needs to be, you know, we want to try and address that.
okay.
So I guess what I'm asking is, do you support, you know, do you have any other projects? First of all, resurfacing paths is, you know, strong, expressing support for having capital improvement program for our maintenance, path maintenance. I'm getting that out of this committee discussion.
Of course.
You know, simply endorsing this list is fine too, if you wish to do that.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier the B-cycle idea, whether you think that's something that's important. That's currently not something that we're pursuing. Bike share is what that is, Brad. You probably know that.
Mark, what's the cost for B-cycle? I do remember it coming to the AG Commission a few years ago, and I think they were supportive, but I know the council didn't support it. What's the cost on something like that?
It's hard to answer that right now because we've had a couple different proposals from B-cycle over the years, and they've since then moved to a e-bike system, so there's different costs for them. So I don't have an answer for you at this point. But
I'm assuming it's a shared cost. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, so there's the capital investment up front, not just for stations, but for the bikes. And then there's the ongoing annual maintenance, you know, so there's two components to it. I don't have any proposal together because we haven't been directed to put a proposal together.
Kirsten?
Yeah, regarding the B cycle, I was a part of all those meetings, and I'm actually for holding off because the city was proposing that the city staff would be doing the maintenance. And I know what the maintenance is on these bikes versus having B cycle do it, because hiring B cycle to do the maintenance was very expensive. So I'm gonna say until we are comfortable having B cycle do the maintenance, that we don't have B cycle bikes, because it's a very intricate that doing the work on them. What I would see happen if the city was doing the maintenance on them, that we'd have a lot of broken down bikes and unusable bikes. So when the folks at B cycle are trained in it, and they go around and maintenance them all around the city. So unless we are okay with having B cycle do the maintenance, I would suggest that we don't go forward with that.
I don't recall that being a major part of the discussion that we were going to have city staff do it, but I would agree with your conclusion.
Yeah, it was a big part of the conversation, and it was actually a part of one of our committee meetings. I just wasn't on the committee yet.
Oh, okay. Well, then my memory is.
Yeah, and I just the amount of training and time that it would take to have a city staff person work on them is ridiculous.
Yeah,
so
no, maybe that's why I blocked it out of my head, because I never thought that was a viable idea.
Dale?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the right place to put it, but there was discussion in the past about crossing guards near the school. And in my research, it was a police department item, but I don't know if they're still funded by the city, if we can push that in this committee again.
I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but you said the police department.
So it's my understanding the police department funds the crossing guards through their
Oh, crossing
budget.
guards, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Crossing guards, yep.
yeah. It's my understanding for that too. I don't have any details on what that operation agreement is. That's it's related to school
Yeah,
activity.
I believe the school
Yeah,
pays the crossing guards and the police
right.
department
But
reimburses.
but the crossings, the crosswalks are only, that program only works during trips to school and from school for a very limited time. So I'm not sure if that's as, in what context are you bringing it up with the committee's mission?
Well, you're talking about budget items. I'm just wondering if we could push, I don't,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't know if this is the right position or right committee to be talking
Right.
about it, other than,
Yeah,
getting the police department aware that we were concerned about it and see if they could fund some crossing guards.
in the spirit of we care about all pedestrians regardless of time of day that they travel. I see what you're saying, and I will pass that along too. I understand that. Yep. I don't even know what the current funding level is or how sufficient or insufficient it is. Do you have an opinion on that, Dale?
I don't know what the budget is there. I know that we had probably talked about it a few times in this committee about right there by Cromery. There was concerns, even looked at possibly bumping the curb out to make
Right.
that crosswalk safer. So I mean, just if we can look at it that way.
Okay. All right, well, I have, I mean, this is the list that we've developed. Ignore the numbers here that. There are no numbers. So there's
All
no
right.
objection to anything on this list, and the things that you're adding are path maintenance. The importance for path maintenance and holding off on B-cycle is what I'm hearing from at least one person.
Mhm.
And then following up with the police department on funding of the crossing guard program. And then also finding out about the status of the Park Brookdale intersection. Okay.
So would this be like the earlier thing where it reflects that we,
If you want to make a motion, if someone wants to indicate, through a motion, I think that would be maybe a little better in this case, just to say, I mean, I'm not asking, you don't need to necessarily say, unless you have a preference for what priorities these are, if there's certain things you want to prioritize more than others. I mean, basically, this is a list that's already been developed. And if you
Right.
just want to endorse the list and add the path maintenance component to it, I think that's perfectly appropriate action coming out of this meeting tonight.
all right. Well, I'm fine with moving to endorse the list and add path maintenance to it.
I'll
This is-
second.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Well, I second it.
Okay, we've got 3 seconds.
Was the second by Rhodes?
Yes.
How about establishing a regular or a 5-year path maintenance program? I think is what she's calling it, something like that. Is that what you had in mind?
Yes.
All right. Those in favor?
I,
Those opposed? All right, motion passes.
These are my minutes. Um,
Item 6, bicyclist pedestrian law and ARP walk audit. Kirsten.
All right, so just to get Brad up to date on this one, Brad, and a couple meetings ago, we set a tangible goal plan with a committee stating 5 things, 3 to 5 things that we really wanted to complete by the end of the year. And then a few things that going forth in next year. And one of the things that I had brought up was to collaborate, using collaborate versus teach from Alder Gennaro, with the police department and possibly fire department on laws that work around pedestrians and cyclists, to make sure that everybody's on the same path so that they know what pedestrian, bike, vulnerable user laws are and what they can do as far as ticketing or writing up people, just so that they're more aware of it, be on the lookout for things like if a pedestrian puts their foot into the crosswalk and a car does not stop, then the police officer can take action, things like that. So I spoke with Guy Gregory, who is the adult educator for the Wisconsin Bicycle Federation, for a couple of hours. Had a great conversation with them. They go by they, they're them. They were very willing to work with us in the police department. They are going to be having surgery in September and will be out of the office for a while, but I did get some dates. The dates being 8/19 to 8/23, I think were not realistic right now because it wouldn't give us enough time to work with the police chief, finding out what dates would work for the police department. However, 9/9 and 9/10, they could also come and work with the police department and us. And fire department and EMS if they choose to be a part of it as well. And that would be right before the week without bikes. And also at the beginning of the school year, which I felt was really important so that kids who are biking and walking to school would feel a little bit safer, and the police department would know what the laws are that they could ticket or warn drivers that were breaking those laws. I don't know if we can get this together by 9/9, 9/10. Guy already has all the information. This is what they do for a living around the state. So they don't need any time at all. It would just be me speaking with the police department, making sure that 9/9 or 9/10, September 9 or September 10th work out for them. If they are willing to do it. And then we would need to figure out where we would want to hold this, whether it be at the police station or at City Hall. Those are a couple of the minor things we can figure out. Otherwise, it would be into October that Guy could do this. In October, we're coming into winter, fewer people are biking and walking. I'd like to see it in September if possible. But I'm happy to wait until October. And then also Guy has a walk audit packet that is very happy to give us as a committee. And I asked them if they'd be willing to work with us more on this come spring so that we're not feeling so overloaded, but to possibly perform a walk audit to see walkability around the city. And that's something that Tad and I have talked about a lot. It's a great packet that's already put together that would guide us right through it, so we're not reinventing the wheel. So what I'm asking from all of you is, do you feel that September 9th or 10th is too soon to get this together? And I would be asking maybe for somebody's help as well to approach the police department on this. And if you do feel that's too soon, do you think that October would be feasible? Anyone? Tad, you and I have worked a lot. We did our ride around the city. And you know the importance of all of this. Do you have any input?
At the moment, I do not.
Okay. I know you're overwhelmed too. Does anybody, I mean, Alder or Mark, your opinion, working with the police department more? I'm gonna approach them in a very, I guess, soft way, not a, oh, we need to teach you things, more like Alder Genero said, a collaboration. And also hoping maybe that they would do some stings, like having a plainclothed cop go into the crosswalks and see what are some of the dangerous intersections and give them a feel for what it is.
It actually dovetails with what I was going to talk about next, but keep going. Oh,
Okay. So the big thing is, do people feel that September 9th or 10th would be good dates to approach the police department with, since it's right before a week without bikes and right after school starts?
well, I mean, also, since no one else has added anything, I will say that I like that idea. We're morphing kind of into the next item, but I just recently attended training, morning training in Stoughton with Sergeant Jessica Kwame of the police department, and have gotten the police chief's permission to work with her and Officer Unger on some initiatives based on the training and what I've learned in training. So I wouldn't call it's not the same program that you're describing with the walk audit, but this was a class.
So the walk on spring.
Right, I understand.
Let's put that off to spring, yeah.
But it was a class that, well, I don't want to jump ahead here, but
Mark, because you went through that course, would you be willing to approach the police chief with me,
Yes.
throwing this out?
Yes,
Okay.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. And do you feel that September 9th or 10th would be too soon? If we got to jump on this?
I think we would need to reach out to the police chief here in the next day or two, certainly by early next week. I would work through specifically Sergeant Kwame, because she is, I sort of get the sense that she's the liaison now for this topic. So I'm happy to do that with you.
Wonderful. Mark, could you go ahead and send me her information?
Okay.
And what I can do also is reach out and say that you and I spoke, and Guy and I have been working together, and again, go about this in a very soft way of saying, we just want to see everybody safe, and we thought that this was a great thing to do at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah. Be happy to.
Great. Thank you.
Should I raise my hand?
No, you're good. Go, Tom.
So the part about safety and, motorist responsibilities, I think bicyclists also have some obligations, like having lights on their bikes at night and things like that. I don't know if that relates to these laws and the safety issues, but does that make sense?
Yep, it does. And what we could do is during the week without cars, I know that the university hands out, as the seasons are changing and it's getting darker, they hand out free lights for people who don't have lights on their bikes. I wonder if we could do an initiative as well like that.
Yeah.
If the cops see a cyclist without lights, maybe they could have a stash in their vehicle. Maybe we could work with Planet Bike to get a bunch of inexpensive lights so that we could hand them out. Instead of writing a ticket, help educate.
Yep.
Yep. The university has a great program with that every fall, so we could copy it.
Yeah.
And rather than tickets, if they do have to do a ticket or do warnings before tickets,
Yep. Yep. And cyclists do have to follow the vulnerable user protocol where they first pedestrians have the right of way. The slowest moving person has the right of way.
kind of like on the lake, boats have the right of way.
But that would be a part of the training that Guy would do so that when police officers do stop somebody, whether it be a motor vehicle or a cyclist, that they just say, hey, in a really nice way, did you know that? And kind of point out what that safety feature is and why it's there.
Yeah. So education rather than enforcement. Good point.
Exactly. Education comes first, enforcement comes second, but enforcement does need to happen when, let's say, a pedestrian is in a crosswalk trying to cross, and cars are blowing by them at 45 miles an hour and putting them at risk.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's basic things like cyclists are allowed to ride two abreast. That is the Wisconsin law. And a lot of drivers do not know that law. Is it kind for cyclists to move into single file? Yes. But by law, they can ride two abreast. And even some police officers don't know that.
Yeah. Well, it gets discussion going, which helps educate everybody.
Yep. And Guy has a great, I asked them to put together a kind of a checklist or I guess, bullet point page that can be handed out to any police officers that cannot go to the training. And that can also be handed out to all of us or anyone that we see fit. So we can have this single sheet, and I asked to make it really streamlined that we can pass out to other people as well.
That would be great for us to have, just
Yep.
to refresh ourselves on the rules. Is it okay if we transition to the Mark's update?
Sure. And then also I would ask Steve or Todd, we need at least one of you to have your camera on because we don't have that's our policy for the city. We need to have a quorum. We have to have a quorum visible. There you go. Thank you. So I attended a training and it was really a really good training. Pedestrian crosswalk safety training is what it's called. Peter Fluke, you probably know who he is, Kirsten, taught the training. I hadn't seen him in a long time. He's up in the Ashwaubenon, Green Bay area, and he was there with a couple others. And there were about 15 people there, mostly law enforcement from different agencies in Dane County, Cross Plains, Sun Prairie, Stoughton, especially a couple from Madison. And then I was happy that one, Jessica Kwame from the police department went. I had invited our police department to participate, so I was really happy that she went, and a couple engineering and planning staff. So basically, I don't have any slides or anything to show, but it was emphasizing walking, the importance of walking, how it's essential for communities. They talked about crash and incident reporting, pedestrian crash types, pedestrian safety statutes, and then we did an exercise that was pedestrian safety enforcement operation, where we didn't issue tickets or anything like that, but we set up an exercise to show how pedestrian enforcement could be done. So I was very encouraged by it. I got a lot out of it, some ideas for our active transportation plan, and took some photos and followed up with our police department already and got, as I already mentioned, Sergeant Kwame and then Officer Ungerer will be point persons for this. So I just want to report that I did that.
Work plan?
Move on to the work plan. I think you've asked for this to be on the agenda every meeting. So I was thinking we would just put it here at the end of the meeting under updates.
And also post it on the webpage?
I do have the website updated to reflect the error that was with the committee member. And then also I do have this there, but I hadn't linked it yet. Show you what I have here under committees, so you can find this in the future. So I have it down here is where it's gonna go. We have committee work plan through 2025. I didn't put it there yet because I wanted to see if there was any other tinkering you wanted to do with it before I finished it or before I uploaded it. And by the way, it's Alder Hanairo. It's not, I've heard some different pronunciations tonight. It rhymes with Cairo, as she likes to put it. So Hanairo. Is there anything else with the work plan that you wanted me to indicate here? Kirsten, is this something, I'm putting you down here with this one? With the police department.
I think it looks good.
And I'll edit this Labor Day thing too. Okay. All right, and then week without driving. I haven't done any preparations yet. Is there somebody that I know Alder Hanairo spearheaded this, so we can talk with her, and she's working on some of this, but she's not available tonight to update us. There is obviously a number of weeks to prepare, but I will work with her on that.
One thing that I would say, a week without driving, we could also put in a playful way or a day, because for some people, a week seems like a really big thing. So a week, and we can then possibly playfully just say a day. I don't know.
Okay.
For folks that drive every day, a week would be very scary.
Yeah. And we'll be working on messaging with our communications manager. So, see, that's what we were talking about, right? Yeah, week without driving. So I will have some news releases, social media presence, that sort of thing. The last item, ridership reports. I am going to just start having this as a standard item. I actually think I just got some ridership reports a few days ago, and then I forgot to put them in the packet, but I just wanted to have this here as a tickler item for future reference. There is going to be a significant change in the next few weeks, as from what I understand, with Metro Transit transitioning to new buses, and I don't know what their timeline was. Originally, it was going to be end of August. I don't know if that's still on track, but our ridership reports have been in a state of flux over the last year or so because, well, several years because of COVID. But now with the new system, the restructured system, it's hard to compare one year with the previous year because the routes are different. So, but I just wanted to start having this here and bring transit discussions into our meetings. So next time we'll have more update for you. That's all I have.
All right, do we have any specific future agenda items we'd like to mention right now? Kirsten.
Yep, the only one, and Mark knows about this as well, because I've been sharing it with both Tad and Mark, is really working a lot with Pleasant View Golf Course to make sure that the new bridge and path stay open. This has been a very trying couple weeks for me working with them, but there is concern that they do not want the mountain bikers using their driveway.
We'll just leave it at that because you didn't list it as an agenda item, but we can have that as an update. So yeah. I debated whether to have it on there as an agenda item, but we had a long enough agenda, and the solution is in progress. So, but since it's not listed as an agenda item, we shouldn't get into the details, but we'll put it on there as an update next time.
Thanks.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Nothing else. Our agenda is complete, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Hope
you.
to
See you next time.
Thank you.
And Todd,
Thank
did you
you.
want to, or not Todd, Tom, did you want to talk briefly, or would you rather talk by phone tomorrow?
I'd rather talk by phone tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds good. Take care. Good night, everybody.